Welcome to The Laundry, the podcast connecting AML compliance and financial crime to the real world.
Money makes a world go round. It makes a world go round. Money makes a world go round.
Trying to map out cross-border transactions across the EU is virtually an impossible task. They flow like water from one nation into the next. According to new figures from Money 2020, EMEA accounts for 48% of all cross-border payments globally, just under half. So now put yourself in the position of assessing those billions of transactions, moving at incredible speed for financial crime risk and suspicious patterns. Sounds like a headache, right? I'm your host, Robin Lycka, Solutions Architect at Strise, and in this episode we're asking, what keeps payment players up at night? We'll be discussing the big challenges that the payments industry throws up for compliance professionals, the solutions which really make a difference, and WISE, AMLA, and all the industry drama in between too. To dive into this topic, I'm delighted to be joined by René Hofer, CRO, CCO, and Branch Director Germany of Holvi. Welcome to The Laundry, René. Your team reached out to us directly with this episode topic, and I'm very glad we can make this happen. Tell me a little about, tell me a little bit about something. Tell me about your role at Holvi.
Yeah, so my role at Holvi is pretty much running the compliance and risk management functions. What you probably would also tend to call the internal control of a financial institution. And I'm looking after keeping our customers as well as our own company safe.
And you wear many hats, including the beautiful one you have today. Not only your roles, but you have the ANU advisory, where you advise other fintechs on how to get this right as well.
That's right. I started this about 4 years ago, and to be fair, it is not like a large-scale business running on the side. It's more of a small side project where I engage with people from the industry that I know, where I try to help in the network a little bit, where I can, and spare some hours, mostly really to share lessons that I have already learned that can save others a bit of time.
Good. Let's dive into the discussions. So let's start by looking at some of the challenges that payment players face. To kick things off, why do you get up every day and do the work that you do?
So at Holvi, we're serving business customers. We work with freelancers, we work with smaller and some larger businesses. And I think if we're looking at the banking industry, on the consumer side, banking almost turned a bit into a lifestyle product over the past decade. Applications got very fancy, got connected to shopping experiences and whatnot. And at the same time, on the business banking side, I think there is still a bit of room to go. So especially smaller businesses, they tend to be, I would say, underbanked a little bit. The access to progressive products is not yet as broad as it is on the consumer side. So what really keeps me up every day is knowing that I can help pushing this forward a bit, knowing that I can contribute to building products that hopefully resolves some hurdles for all of these small businesses so that they can actually focus on building their business and not focus on putting paperwork in place and doing endless reports and whatnot.
Yeah, and you mentioned building systems, so you joined Holvi back in 2019, so you've been there for a minute. You had to scale and localize a very different system rather than inheriting a legacy system. What did that actually look like? And tell us a little bit about the challenges.
So back in 2019, when I joined Holvi, at this point, Holvi was operating as a subsidiary of a large Spanish corporate bank. It was a little bit different to the typical fintech as you would imagine it. So there was not only regulators looking at us, but also our parent company looking at us. And in a compliance function, that means you really got a few things to do and to report and to get right. So I would say the biggest challenge was that the regulatory expectations that you are facing are almost identical, whether you are a large bank or if you're a small and lean team. So you have to navigate the same pool of tasks, the same tool of duties. And this was probably the biggest challenge. Like when I started, I would say, maybe a bit too idealistic, trying to build the perfect framework that does it all, that has it all. And then like slowly but surely, you have to realize that it's not going to work. Like you won't be able to do this with a couple of people. So the reality check was really, before building anything, you got to understand your own business. You got to understand what you're trying to achieve, and then build the priorities around that.
Yeah, I guess the idealistic part is something that anyone that has entered a role with a certain level of enthusiasm and passion has actually stumbled into at some point. But tell us, like, on a detail level, what went wrong first and how did you find out?
What went wrong? I mean, I would say there's probably a few things that went wrong by definition, and then there were a few things that went wrong to my own standard. And as I mentioned, I approached it a little bit on an idealistic level. There are so many frameworks out there, so many golden rule books to put in place. And I tried a little bit too much to go by the book. So what you end up doing then is you throw large frameworks over a company that just gets confused by what the hell you want from them. And at the same time, if you're not tailoring the processes that you're building, or if you do not make sure the policy that you're writing actually speaks your own business's language, then it just won't work. It won't find a point where it can start having effects. And so at the end of the day, it might look great on paper and from the outside, but it's just a silo that doesn't do anything. And I think I relatively quickly noticed that, okay, I need to redo this thing. And I actually need to start going into the teams first and understand how they work, what their challenges are, so that any kind of frameworks, rules, policies we are building rather contribute to these challenges instead of putting additional hurdles in the way.
Yeah. And a little bit about your customer base. It's your customer base is entirely SMEs, freelancers, micro entrepreneurs. What does that risk profile actually look like compared to a retail or a corporate bank?
I would say it's actually not too different from a retail or corporate bank. Of course, especially as a digital first provider, you might attract those who are a little bit more tech savvy. You maybe get those companies where founders are anyways running software offerings themselves. So kind of meeting on an eye level. But at the end of the day, I mean, it goes down to the industries that you're trying to work with, who are your customer target groups, and these can be the same that corporate banks are serving or trying to serve. What might differ a little bit is that corporate banks out there, I think oftentimes have maybe a bit of a higher domestic focus, so they are serving basically the clients in their home countries, and we at Holvi, similar to many others in the fintech space, we have a very international offering. So we really serve customers cross-border. We look at those company constellations that have people from all over the world involved, where founders come together to make an idea happen, whether they are in Germany, in Austria, in Finland, or anywhere entirely else. So I think that's probably makes it a bit different that we have many countries that come together to do banking business.
Yeah. And on that note, Holvi operates under a Finnish payment institution license, right? But it serves customers across multiple European markets, as you mentioned, including the German branch where you're situated under BaFin as well. So that's a pretty complex compliance picture for a company of your size. How do you manage the tension between those multiple regulatory cultures?
I can make it even a little bit more complex because as of this year, we are even running an Austrian branch. So there is a third regulator in the game.
But wait, there's more.
There is more, right? But yeah, I mean, it is indeed a challenge to navigate these very distinct regulatory cultures, I would say. Our home regulator in Finland has like quite a Nordic touch in how they operate, whereas BaFin, which I mean it is very well known as one of the let's say maybe stricter regulators, also in the way they operate. So what we overall try to do and follow as a golden rule is we're building for the highest denominator. So we're basically, depending on the topic that we're handling, we're looking at who has the strictest take on it, and we try to satisfy that. Because if we do, we naturally satisfy the other regulators as well. Of course, there are always local nuances that you have to consider, but it's typically a well-working approach because it allows us then to build processes and prepare teams in a way that you don't have fractured operations. So you don't do it that way for Germany and a completely different way for Finland, but you can actually streamline your processes. And then, of course, there is the regulator on the other side who has an opinion on that approach. But from my experience, they appreciate also the work of other regulators. So if you really signal them that you're trying to get that right, and if you sometimes even translate what the other regulator thinks about it to them, you end up having quite constructive eye-level discussions. And here, like a small fun story that I had not imagined that this would happen. I like when doing this, you can end up suddenly in an email thread that has like regulators from 3 countries in it, and you're discussing the same question between like 5 people, and then you really realize, okay, actually everyone here has the same mission. We're trying to keep the industry safe. We're trying to keep customers safe. Everyone wants something in that, so show that you're willing to invest, and then in return, you'll equally get what you're looking for. So that if you make sure it's a win-win situation, then you can also navigate these different cultures easily.
It's I'm very happy to hear that. Actually, it's from the outside, it sometimes seems like you can see one regulator having a focus area or a thematic inspection on sanctions, while another regulator is focusing on auditing. So it's kind of just wondering how you deal with that. But it sounds like this is actually something that's working quite well.
It does, but of course you have a good point there. Regulators have their own roadmaps, if you want so. They have their priorities, and for a good reason. I mean, they regulate different markets, and there are political differences, there are economic differences between markets. So yes, they have slightly different agendas, and that means that you have basically serve multiple roadmaps, which in volume it can mean more work, but that's just part of the business. I think you can also understand it maybe as a healthy push. So for us, it just means we have to be better. We have to do more, and it's at the end of the day, as I said earlier, it is in everyone's interest. And if we stay on top of what the individuals really need, it helps us just being more resilient in the way we operate.
And following regulators, you always have the news, and you can't be in this industry and not have seen the breaking news around Wise. That was more than 30 countries across Europe. Transactions amounted to €500 million. So it was opened in 2025. And when a story like this breaks, how do you react?
I mean, to start with, of course, as you said, we all heard the news and can follow it. But first of all, I have immense respect for what our colleagues at Wise built over the past decade. I think they really shaped the industry and they opened doors for a lot of new products and offerings. So that's surely something that you need to state as a fact. And then obviously as a digital player, and I know it from ourselves, I would argue you probably are also a bit more of a target naturally to such structured attacks. Because sorry.
You don't have to pause right away.
Sorry.
No, you were saying they're a valued player in the industry, and I wanted to ask. Let's just redo the last two sentences and let me in.
Okay. So to start with, I think our colleagues at Wise have built an immense product over the past decade, and they really opened doors for a lot of new products and providers out there. So I have immense respect for that.
Absolutely. Fully understand and appreciate that. But when something like this breaks, does it make you triple check your own processes?
I wouldn't say so. I read it and I think through, okay, is this something that could happen to us? Is there maybe a weak spot that we should double check? But if you end up doing a panic audit, then I would say your framework was already weak at this point. So I would say we thoroughly discuss it and we try to understand also beyond headlines what was really going on. But then at the end of the day, you got to move on with your own controls and you're never immune to that. The moment you think you're immune to such an attack, you already lost the game. So carry on with your own business, with your own priorities, and just understand it as a reminder that the threats are real and they are happening to everyone, whether it's a digital player or a corporate bank. Nobody is immune to that.
So keep calm and carry on, as they say in the UK.
Exactly.
Okay, we'll be right back to talk about the solutions and the future of payment space. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to The Laundry. A reminder that all Laundry hosts are active on LinkedIn, so drop us a message if you want to discuss today's episode. We really like hearing from you. We've talked about the challenges and stresses. Let's now look at solutions. Can you give us an example of a solution you've implemented recently which improved your work?
Absolutely. I have an exciting example for that. We, on the compliance side of the team, we have recently vibe coded a fully functional internal control tool. So basically a tool where we carry out our testing and auditing activities. And that's in itself, of course, exciting. It brings you a new tool. It opens new ways of being more efficient in what you do. But what I especially like about it is, like a few years back, who would have thought a compliance team would build their own tool from scratch? You would have ended up in a tech backlog fighting for priorities. and now you can basically just build exactly what you want and free up capacities for other things. So that is quite exciting, and I'm pretty proud of what the team has been doing with it so far. We're fairly early still in the project, but I would say first signals are confirming that this is gonna make our lives much easier.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I find it so it's mind blowing on a daily basis. You know, I usually refer to myself as a certified village idiot. But perhaps with a bit more tech knowledge than the average village idiot. But, you know, just last week, I built an agent that can assess data completeness on a KYC profile, and it will gauge whether or not it ends up, if it resolves in a natural person, if it resolves in a company, if that path is complete. Just doing stuff
amazing.
like that is just mind blowing what you can build, and so fast as well. Okay, so in that sense, maybe a good question is what's harder to make work nowadays? Is it technology or is it culture?
Culture, 100% culture. Technology, it got easier and easier. I just mentioned the example of a compliance team vibe coding things. Culture always involves people, and it will always involve people. Changing habits or combining habits of different realities is incredibly difficult, and it requires so much discipline and this intrinsic willingness to really change. So I think especially in our field, in compliance teams, AML, risk management, it is always such a challenge to demonstrate the value that you're trying to produce. I think it's naturally people can understand your demands as an extra burden, as extra work, and this is just something where cultural work and people work is really fundamental to make such a change happen.
And when you get that right, what does it look like? How is a corporate culture like that different in how they operate day to day?
I would say the first thing that you have to do is break down the ivory tower that you can see in many institutions. And especially, I would say, this has been a thing in the past, that compliance was a bit of an untouchable function. And what they say is the law. I think if this is the way you operate, then you will have quite a hard time to make compliance work. So break that down and don't understand yourself as any different from the rest of the teams. So work hand in hand, work on eye level, and try to put yourself into the shoes of the other teams, really. Friction is healthy, so take these discussions and understand the concerns and then try to build with that. Like a risk culture is nothing that one person imposes on others, but it's something that you build up together.
Yeah, I always say, contrary to the expression curiosity killed the cat, I think curiosity is the key element of making anything that we do actually work. We talked a little bit about the SME risk profile as well before the break. What does your transaction monitoring actually look like in practice, seeing as you're low value, high volume? Typically, one would say your biggest risk is in your low risk.
There's definitely something to it. So I think the biggest misconception is maybe that like volumes, like payment volumes or number of payments are like the pure indicators to how risky something is. There is so much more to it. So if we think about monitoring, If you just have a static system in place that looks at, someone spent X amount in a month, then this is not really going to tell you about the true risk behind it. It of course can be a helpful indicator to categorize a little bit the volumes you're dealing with. But the real power is in behavioral monitoring. If there is this small freelancer who suddenly moves corporate level volumes out of a sudden, why? Or if there is that SME that makes 10 times the monthly volumes compared than their industry peers, are they really that successful, or is there something off behind that? So I strongly believe you have to look behind the surface. You really need to understand who's involved in an individual business to understand its risk. There are no such rules that work for everyone, and that would make your monitoring effective.
Okay. I think it's a universal fact for everyone in this industry that AMLR is coming. So for payment players like yourself, is this going to offer more solutions or more challenges?
I'm more on the side of more solutions. Obviously, like everyone is talking now about AMLA, and at the end of the day, it has been on the horizon now for quite a while. So I hope everyone is a bit more advanced already in preparing for it. But if we really manage to get this harmonization, especially on a cross-border basis in place, if we can manage to make AML requirements roughly the same in all EU countries, then this brings massive opportunities. For a player like Holvi, that really means we can suddenly run that one onboarding flow. We don't need 7 versions of it to make it work everywhere, which is of course a great opportunity, because that means we can make it faster, we can make it simpler for the customer as well, and it just makes it overall more seamless. Of course, at the same time, for customers, for businesses out there, that really also means they will experience less friction in their banking. So for them, that's equally an opportunity of actually strengthening their own business, which is in everyone's interest.
And for someone like yourself and Holvi, what does your timeline look like between now and next summer?
I think, like, if I'm thinking back, we started probably 1.5 years ago already, when like the very initial consultations and draft papers came out, not to run huge implementations, but rather to start understanding in what direction do we need to think. And our timeline now for the next 12 months, I would say, is really putting those finished thoughts into place. So it's like the simple things of adjusting some of our policies. But I would say the biggest work now really goes into watching and participating. The AMLA is quite active right now with publishing consultations, actively getting feedback from participants in the market. And that's something where we generally want to spend time with, because at the end of the day, it's, to an extent, it is in our hands really how this exactly will work out. And I do think that there is a genuine chance that we can influence a bit how this harmonization will work in reality.
And both specifically to that, but also more generally in what you do, what keeps you motivated to find solutions in this?
What keeps me motivated really is, in very simple terms, if there are no payments, if there is no cross-border flow of money, then there is no economy. So what keeps me motivated is knowing that every product we build for customers, every process that we change and improve on on our end internally is ultimately contributing to that. It removes roadblocks. It helps founders to get started with their business or to scale their business, and it maybe helps also to take away a bit the worries of those who have an idea but are too concerned of starting that idea. Knowing that I can help with that with what we do at Holvi is definitely quite a motivating factor that gets me out of bed.
I love that. It's almost it's a bit altruistic, isn't it? Because people actually just expect payments to work, but there's a lot that happens behind the scenes to actually make these small businesses enable them to work across borders and get their day-to-day operations running.
Absolutely. I think before I entered the payment space, I had no idea how many parties it takes to really bring 10 euros from Germany to Austria. So it is an impressive infrastructure, and someone has to maintain it, and someone especially has to make it better, because it is also a very old infrastructure that exists for a long time already.
Okay, before we end this episode, we're going to dish out some quick fire questions for you. Before we end this episode, we're going to dish out some quick fire questions for you. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
What's the one thing no one told you about working in compliance?
How much psychology is involved. I think people think this is all about legal texts, but it's maybe 20% legal texts and 80% empathy and negotiation.
Which is harder, building from scratch or inheriting legacy tech?
Inheriting. Building from scratch is a massive challenge, but untangling decades of technology or rigid data structures is something that can really stress you out a lot.
And do you think the payments industry is ready for AMLA?
That's a very good question. Ready? Honestly, I wouldn't say so. I think there is still quite a bit of panic out there and quite a few unknowns, but I'm confident that we'll eventually get there.
Perfect. And lastly, what keeps a payment institution up at night?
The unknown unknowns. We talked about AI earlier, and as much as it opens the doors for us, it also opens the doors for anyone who wants to harm you, with the difference that they don't follow the rules. So obviously they can be always a step ahead of you, and you got to make sure that you keep up in that race.
Great. That brings this spin of the laundry to an end. René, thank you so much for joining me. Where can people find and connect with you?
They can find me off LinkedIn, of course. Just look for René Hofer, or check out our company profile, Holvi.
And thank you all for listening. If you've enjoyed this podcast, check out the back catalog of more than 160 episodes and follow The Laundry on your podcast platform of choice. Please share the podcast on your social media channels. Tell a colleague to subscribe. Maybe give us a 5-star rating. It really helps people to find us. Got an interesting topic to share like René did? Reach out to us, message me directly on LinkedIn, or email laundry@strise.ai. Your host for this episode was me, Robin. Our producer was Matthew. Our editor was Dominic. And our video was by Loïs. The Laundry is proudly produced by Strise, the autonomous fin crime department. Visit strise.ai for more information, and see you next time.